go completely around the building at the upper floors. And another loud, earth-shattering blast with a large fireball, which blew out more debris. I saw low-level flashes. Saw a number of brief light sources being emitted from inside the building between floors 10 and 15. I saw flash, 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 and then it looked like the building came down. Well, you can see these flashes in this particular video. They're little pinpricks of white light.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, I am.
Tell me what you saw.
Well, on the corner of 20 and West Broadway, walking down towards the Twin Towers, and it just collapsed. It looks like it looks sort of like the door just demolished. Smoke, clouds, I mean, the smoke clouds.
You'll continue to see
people running toward the towards the Twin Towers. People running away from the towers.
A live picture of the
Fire doesn't do this either.
Deputy Commissioner Thomas Fitzpatrick said, it looked like sparkling around one specific layer of the building. My initial reaction was that this was exactly the way it looked when they show you the nuke.
I don't know where that graphic is coming from. I've never seen it before in my life. You're supposed to be seeing. You're hearing David Ray Griffin, and you're supposed to be seeing David Ray Griffin. So just imagine David Ray Griffin talking. He doesn't look like this. That's his soul.
Chief Grant Carruthers said, there was what appeared to be an explosion. It appeared in the very top, simultaneously on all four sides. Material shot out horizontally, and then there seemed to be a momentary delay before you could see the collapse. Now that's very important because essentially the official theory say that these horizontal injections, medical workers witnessed all these phenomena suggestive of controlled demolition. Might be wondered why you have not heard much about this. Part of the answer is probably provided by Auxiliary Lieutenant Fireman Paul Isaac, having said that there were definitely bombs in those buildings. Isaac added that many other firemen know there were bombs in the buildings, but they're afraid for the jobs to admit it because higher-ups forbid discussion of this topic. So we have not heard about this because although Isaac said that some time back, it has not been on the evening news or in the 9/11 Commission report. These facts taken together render the likelihood of the official theory essentially zero. In fact, each of the 10 phenomena, the likelihood of it occurring without explosives being used is by itself essentially zero. But let's be generous and suggest maybe there's a 1% chance that these things could occur. Virtual free fall speed, straight down, enormous amount of dust. 1% chance. But when you figure out the probabilities then, when you say how many, 2 of them would occur, 3 of them would occur, by the time you get up to 10 of them occurring without explosives, you're talking about the likelihood of 1 in a trillion. So we can say that the official theory about the towers is disproved as thoroughly as any such theory could possibly be, whereas all the evidence can be explained by the alternative theory according to which the towers were brought down by explosives. The official theory is therefore an outrageous theory, whereas the alternative theory is, from a scientific point of view, the only possible theory.
Well, let's follow that up and see if it is in fact true. And where do these explosions come from?
Buildings as they fall into their footprint, the tremendous billowing clouds of dust. Now let's look at the collapse of the Twin Towers. We are seeing explosions rather than implosions, a first in demolition history. The sequence rumble becomes a roar as debris is thrown outward. The damage is not contained. Even the windows are blown from neighborhood buildings. What kind of energy enabled this? Would fire hurl metal and concrete sideways into the air? Here, a 600,000-pound chunk of steel, twice the weight of a Boeing airliner, was flung 400 feet, wedging itself deep into 3 World Financial Center on Vesey Street. A female photographer taking pictures of Ground Zero wondered why so many steel beams were jutting from neighborhood buildings. What shot pieces of the towers all the way across the street? In April 2006, New Yorkers were distressed to learn that bone fragments, human remains from 9/11, had been found on the roof of the nearby Deutsche Bank building.
And how, in God's name, did those fragments get there?
It surprised me that there were still bone fragments or human remains that had not been discovered.
How is it possible that after 5 years they're finally looking on the rooftop of the Deutsche building and not crazy?
And bone fragments less than a centimeter long. How could they be so small?
That's an important question that every one of us has to ask ourselves. 700 bone fragments, less than a half an inch long. Of course, a gravitational collapse would entrap those human bodies, not shred them and send them up into the cloud. Speaking of clouds, this is World Trade Center North Tower. Is there any, and this one here, is there any resemblance to that other explosion that we saw earlier? Almost a fireworks geometry, upward and outward streamers, shooting streamers. Well, let's find out how these columns are cut and exploded.
Words of a senior blaster.
We blow the basement, all the columns in the basement. Then we crack it up at the top to get it started. We go every other floor, all the way down. Every explosive has a timer on it. That's why it's controlled. When the columns go, each floor goes down and impacts the one below and keeps going.
Here's what demolition experts use in steel-framed buildings. The linear shaped charge.
It's a chevron-shaped or V-shaped charge that you can focus at a specific target, and it's lethal. It generates around 3 million pounds per square inch pressure at a speed, depending on the explosive inside the shaped charge, in excess of 27,000 feet per second.
Very powerful stuff. Oops. Well, let's find out if there's evidence of these shaped charges in the World Trade Center.
Were the underground explosions intended to blow out the Twin Towers' basements, followed by blasts heard inside the buildings of shaped charges slicing the core? Demolition pre-weakening usually takes place well in advance of the final blast, but at the World Trade Center, critical prep work might have had to occur in a very compressed time frame in the panicked aftermath of the plane strikes. These core columns were discovered after the collapse. The angled cut occurs in exactly the manner that shaped charges slice through steel beams to control the way they fall. Notice the hardened, once liquid metal. Was thermite used with the shaped charge?
The job of the shaped charge is to cut steel H-beams.
The way we do this is by cutting the beam at an angle, which, through a series of beams cut at the same angle, will tend to make the building shift over and walk.
Of course, there are several examples of these angled cuts with this thick, copious slag, which is not a typical part of the oxyacetylene iron cutting